What's up, everybody? It's Raphael, and I hate people. Welcome back to another episode of the Bible. And I'm a little excited because I just realized that we coming to the end of the book of Genesis. I never finished nothing in a day in my life. And I'm finna finish the book of Genesis. We are close. I'll say about another 3 episodes of the Bible will be through the book of Genesis. And then the other reason to be excited is because I get down to doing what I made this channel for. The whole title, How to Human Properly, is I'm gonna show you guys what I mean. I'm gonna show you what I mean. And it's gonna be me, 100% uncut, no censor, no nothing. Me. Anyway, let's dive back into this Bible. Let's do a recap right quick. Where did we live? Where did we leave off? Chapter 35 through 38. Yeah, chapter 35 through 38. We left off. Let's see what we got. God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar." Okay. Jacob said to his household, "Get rid of the foreign gods. Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you and purify yourselves." I guess don't want no bad energy. So anything not of God, get rid of it. Anything that you've done wrong, get rid of it. Let's clean the slate. I guess. I don't know. Let's see. So yeah, they got rid of their stuff, gave it to Jacob. Jacob buried the stuff under the oak at Shechem. Under the oak at Shechem. After that, they set out, and the terror of God fell on the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Wow. I still don't like this whole favoritism thing, but whatever. Let's continue. After that, Jacob returned from Padan Aram. They're on their way to where they were going. God appeared and blessed him and said, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So I guess this is the whole story behind how God came to him and renamed him Israel, because in the last episode, he was wrestling with some man who just from out the blue named him Israel. So I guess this is, I don't know. The Bible can be confusing. I don't know. That's what I'm getting out of it. Anyway, carrying on. Yeah, so God named him Israel. Let's see. Later, Rachel was pregnant again. She had another baby, and she named it was a boy. She named the son Ben Oni, in her last dying breath. But her father named, well, his father, Ben Oni's father, named him Benjamin. So we have a Ben Oni and a Benjamin. I don't know how that's gonna work out. I guess we're gonna go with what Jacob said, since he's still alive. Anyway, Rachel died. Excuse me. Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, also aka Bethlehem. Israel moved on. Reuben. I feel like going back. Reuben was Jacob's first son. Yeah, Reuben slept with Bilhah. Who was that? Rachel's servant. Yeah, Rachel's servant, who also was somebody that Jacob had slept with and had kids with. And then we go into a bunch of names. I hate those, trying to pronounce all that shit. Let's see. Then we went into the family line of Esau. Bunch of names. What we got here? Esau moved to a land some distance from his brother Jacob. Their possessions were too great for them to remain together. So they separated. So Esau settled in the hill country of Seir, Seir. I don't know. Then we got to the family line of Esau again. Bunch of names. Bunch of names. That's all we need to know. And I mean a bunch. Let's see what else we got. In chapter 37, Joseph, at 17, tending to the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. Bilhah and Zilpah are his father's wives. And he brought their father a bad report about them. So basically he snitched. Joseph is a snitch. I don't know what happened, but he went back and told. Israel loved Joseph much more than the other sons, I guess, because of the whole fact that he's the baby. You know how that go. Parents show more love to the baby. But according to the Bible, it's because he had been born to him in his old age, because Israel was old and he still had one last child. No, he had a few in his old age, but Joseph was one of the last. Anyway, so Israel made an ornate, Ornate, robe for him. His brothers saw, they was hating, and they never spoke a kind word about Joseph, or to Joseph rather. Anyway, Joseph had a dream, told it to his brothers. He said, "My sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." In the dream, there were what is this? We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field. So while they were doing that, his sheaf stood upright, erect. Everybody else is gathered around his and bowed. Anyway, his brother said, "You intend to reign over us? Like, nigga, you the little brother. What you trying to say?" Nah, son. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, they asked that, and he had another dream. Joseph had another dream and told that one to him too. This time, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. I'd feel like Joseph was feeling himself a little too much too. I mean, at this point, the sun and the moon and the star, 11 stars bowing? How? What are you trying to say, my friend? You? Anyway, yeah, his father kept the matter in mind, so he told his father too about that one. He kept the matter in mind, but at the same time, he was thinking the same thing. Like, you expect us to just bow down to you? What you trying to say? But he kept it in mind. His brothers, on the other hand, hated him even more. Let's see, moving on. Okay, so later, Joseph was going after his brothers to do some kind of work to graze their father's flocks. And he set out to look for his brothers because they went ahead before him. And they were out plotting to kill him. And when Joseph found them, they were like, this is a funny thing to me. Here comes the dreamer. I don't know why I find that so funny, because I can see that, like, back when I was growing up as a kid, you say or do anything like out the blue that's just not normal, weird, they kind of taunt you like that. You know, here come the dreamer. Uh-oh. Anyway, yeah, so they're like, let's kill him and say a ferocious animal devoured him. Reuben heard this. He tried to rescue him from their hands. And let's see. He said, don't shed any blood. Throw him in this cistern, or whatever. It's a Cistern. I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. Here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. So they stripped him of his robe, that special robe that Isaac made, and threw him in the cistern, whatever. And there was no water in it; it was empty. Judah said to his brothers, I'm assuming Judah is one of the brothers, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. Ishmaelites. That's a word for you right there. Ishmaelites. Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. His brothers agreed. They sold him for 20 shekels of silver, and the Ishmaelites took him to Egypt. They got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood, the goat's blood. Took the robe back to their father. Jacob tore his clothes. Okay, so we're saying Jacob again. See, this is another thing. Stick to a name. You're confusing. Going from Jacob to Isaac to Jacob. Like, God. This case is saying Jacob, but, he's Isaac. Israel. I'm sorry. Jacob to Israel, Israel to Jacob. But, yeah. Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son for many days. The Midianites sold Joseph, this is meanwhile, sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. At that time, Judah left his brothers to stay with a man of Adullam. I guess that's it. Adullam. Adullam. Named Hira. Hirah. He met the daughter of a Canaanite named Shua. He married her, gave birth to a son named Er. Then another named Onan, and another after that named Shelah. So that's 1, 2, 3 kids. That's 3 sons. Judah got a wife for the oldest one, named Tamar. But was wicked in the Lord's sight. The Lord put him to death some kind of way. Didn't explain that. So Judah said to Onan, the second son, sleep with your brother's wife, because, we want the family name and bloodline to run strong. But Onan, he wasn't about that life. He ain't like her, I guess. She ain't have good. Anyway, he slept with her, but he spilled the semen on the ground. He was like, not me, not this, no. So yeah, that was wicked in the Lord's sight. God put him to death. God was raw back in the day. Like, why? Just putting people to death because they don't want to. Anyway, Judah said to Tamar after that, live as a widow till my son Shelah grows up, the youngest one. After a long time, Judah's wife died. He went up to Timnah, Timnah. Timnah. Yeah, he went up to Timnah. Tamar was told, because this is where she lived, Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to shear his sheep. She took off her widow's clothes. She covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Took off. Wanted to meet him. Judah saw her and thought she was a prostitute right off bat. Off of her cloak, I guess. And he wanted some of that action. So he said, come here, guy. Sleep with you. I said, and he said, I'll send you a young goat from my flock. This is his payment. Because, again, he thought she was a prostitute. She asked, will you give me something as a pledge until you send it? So he was like, no. I'm sorry. She said, your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand. She was like, that should be suffice. You know, I'm pretty sure you would want that back. He gave them to her and slept with her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law is guilty of prostitution. She pregnant. Judah said, bring her out. We'll have her burned to death. He was raw too. Raw. So anyway, she was brought out. She sent a message to her father-in-law. I'm pregnant by the man who owns these things that he gave her before he slept with her. You know, the seal and its cord and the staff. I'm pregnant by the man that gave me these. Judah recognized it and said, she is more righteous than I. And he did not sleep with her again. That's it. I guess she didn't get burned. Anyway, so let's see. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. One of them put out his hand. The midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it on his wrist. And he drew his arm back in. He drew his hand back in some kind of way. I don't know. So after that, his brother came out, and he was named Perez, Perez. Then his brother, who had the thread on his wrist, he came out after, named Zerah, Zerah. And that's pretty much it for that recap. Now, we continue with chapter 39. All right. Now, Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Remember Joseph? Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of the Pharaoh's officials, captain of the guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph so he prospered. I don't like the way they... Anyway, and he lived in the house of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household, and the Lord, From the time he put him in charge of his household and all, bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. Verse 5, from the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph. Yeah, come to bed with me, she said. He refused. I can't believe that. Joseph, you a stand-up guy. He refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. Joe. Boy, that boy got a killer code. Killer. Let's continue. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Verse 11, one day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Joe is the man is so real. I like Joseph. I don't know what he had going on talking about the dreams and stuff, but Joseph has all my respect right now. He ran out the house. She called her household servants. Look, she said to them, this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran. You know, we have that today. You know, women faking the whole R word. That makes me mad. But let's continue. She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story. That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. Which, I mean, at the same time, Joseph, how can you be so stupid? That was stupid. Anyway, when his master heard the story his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Prison? I have to go there. I hate the way they write this stuff. Anyway, but while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. Let me pull this out. All right. Verse 23. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Chapter 40. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. Why don't they just say that? They put him in the same prison. Anyway, the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. That's a new one for me. Rejected, yes. Dejected, never heard it. So what? So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God?" Okay. "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." Okay. Keep reading. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened. I'm sorry, my bad. Its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." This is what happens. Excuse me, that's not what that said. "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a what is wrong with me today? I'm sorry, y'all. A favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means," Joseph said. 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, come on now. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head and impale your body on a pole, and the birds will eat away your flesh. Whoa. Now the 3rd day, the Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday. I'm sorry. and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he impaled chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him, left him hanging, didn't care. Got my position back. Fuck you, nigga. Fuck that nigga. Anyway, 41. Here we go. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds, R-E-E-D-S. I don't know what that means. After them, 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. I guess that is kind of scary. Cows eating cows, especially the ugly ones. Verse 5. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning, his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dream, but no one could interpret them. 9. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard." Oh my God. Let's try that again. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. I hate the way they word things on here. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him about our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored in my position, and the other man was impaled. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph and was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. God. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." 17. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows came, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I had never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I saw 7 heads." You should have said it in another dream, but whatever. "In my dream, I saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin, and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but none of them could explain it to me." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so there are 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. 31. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because the famine that follows will be so severe. 32. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in two forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. 33. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. Verse 37. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you." 40. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. 41. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring, S-I-G-N-E-T, signet ring, I don't know, from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, "Make way." Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your word, no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt." Without your word, no one will lift hand or foot in all Egypt. Okay. 45. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zephinath, Zephinath-Panay, I guess. And gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, O-N, to be his wife. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding. Hate Siri. In each city, excuse me, y'all. In each city, he put the food grown in the field surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. 50. Before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, Manasseh, and said, It is because God made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household." The second son he named Ephraim, Ephraim, and said, "It is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." 53. Stop it, Siri. That's Siri, y'all. Again, sorry. The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end. Hold on, let me see something right quick. Okay, yeah, 53. The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When all Egypt began to feel famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food. Then Pharaoh told all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do what he tells you." 56. When the famine had spread over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the world came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna stop it there. We did what is this? 3 chapters, I think. 39, 40, 41. Yeah. We did 3 chapters. We're gonna stop it there. And I'm gonna do a recap in the next episode, so we make sure we're caught up, and then we're gonna continue with chapter 42. Yeah, but I mean, so far I think I kind of like Joseph. He's a stand-up dude. Joseph ain't about nothing that breaks his code, and it's probably because of the fact that God's talking to him or whatever. I don't know, but Joseph's a pretty cool dude. I like him. This might actually make me watch that movie. I think it's called The Story of Joseph. Either way, that movie, that cartoon movie, I might check it out. Anyway, that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We are on our way to the end of the book of Genesis. I'm so ready for it. Like, comment, subscribe. Again, comment anything that you could tell me, enlighten me, teach me on what this thing is saying. I'm having the toughest time, but I'm reading it. And I think everybody should. I mean, especially if you believe in it. You believe in this thing, you should read it for yourself. Otherwise, how do you believe in it? Anyway, that's it for today. See you guys next time. Peace.